Down it comes here again. It'll go Timmy Watson. The snap for goals. It's coming around and up it is. What a beautiful goal by Timmy Watson. That's goal number 4. It's brought the Essendon crowd to life.
Gets it across to Watson. Now the member stand comes alive as Timmy runs the boundary. Flicks one in towards goal. It's coming back. What a goal!
Watson looking for a free, but he's got the ball anyway. Short pass by Watson. Up to full forward. Danaher, well caught by Bruce Gould, who's playing a fantastic game. Watson in the meantime has taken by Watson. The Essendon fans roar. Watson shot at goal. There's a boomer. Essendon running rings around their opponents at the moment. They're doing as they like. Watson steadies. Turns on a Srupany bit. A long shot at goal by Watson is another one. 5 goals to Watson. It is a bar.
He's the darling of Bomber fans and opposition supporters alike. But away from the spotlight of football, it's here Tim Watson loves to escape. His country retreat in Gippsland, where he relaxes with his wife Susie and family. A country boy from birth, the bush provides a great escape from the pressures of AFL football. The boy from Dimboola has found his place in the country, on the banks of Lake Glenmaggie.
In my whole football career, what I wanted to get out of football was somewhere to, like a farm or somewhere in the country, because I'd enjoyed my life, my growing up years in the country, and I wanted to have a family. I wanted to have a big family, and I wanted to have my children enjoy the country life as well. And I suppose, when you're sort of playing football and you're making money as a young fellow, you're sort of trying to decide what to do with your money, and that's one of the things I wanted to do, and it's been a great thing because we often get down here and spend good quality family time together, and we're away from everything. We're away from people, and it's just a nice, quiet, idyllic place.
But go back more than 300 league games, and Tim Watson hadn't heard of Glenmaggie. He was at home in the Wimmera, honing his skills and dreaming of the big time in the big smoke.
I think that probably football started in our house at home. I had 2 older brothers, Mark and Larry, and they were obviously playing football before I was. And we used to play. I can remember playing in the hallway at home with rolled up socks, and in the backyard, in the front yard, out on the street. We lived across the road from the primary school too, and we used to go over there and play games on the oval there and in like any space we could really find. We used to put a football in a stocking and sort of practice, jumping up and taking the marks on the clothesline. But actually, I had a mate who used to live around the corner, and we used to go to his grandmother's place. She had a garage out the back with a tiled roof, and we used to throw the ball up onto the tiled roof, and it used to just dribble back down. It used to hit the guttering and then spring up, and we practiced taking speckies on each other's shoulders. So I probably tried to hone some marking skills then.
Players again goes for the short pass, and a magnificent mark comes out toward Watson, but side bottoms there. Watson, a great mark.
And then towards the full forward zone. Watson's got the mark.
I think one of the things that always helped my football development was the fact that I played a lot of football in older age groups all the way through my junior years, so I never really played in a competition that I was a standout type player. When I played school football, I think I was in grade 3 or grade 4, and I was in the grade sort of 5 and 6 team, and then I went into high school and I was in grade 1, in Form 1, and I played in the senior football team. So there was always others that were better and physically bigger and stronger and more developed than what I was. And in hindsight, it was nothing that was ever planned, but I think in hindsight it was a great thing because it meant that the interest for me was always kept by the fact that I couldn't just sort of run around and do whatever I liked. A fellow by the name of Jack Green, who was the Essendon scout up around our area, he was often at the football, and he got to know my parents a bit, and if I ever knew that he was there, even when I was 12 or 13, I'd be desperate to get out onto the ground at half-time, just thinking that, perhaps he's sitting over there with a cup of tea and a scone and he might be watching, and, perhaps that's how they pick kids to go down to play in Melbourne one day. So I think he knew our family. He'd been to our place a couple of times because Larry had already been there. And I played, when I was 13, I went across to New Guinea in a Victorian representative side, and then when I was 14, I played in the under-15 Victorian side, and so I played for the Wimmera. Glenn Hawker was in that team. Mark Dreher, who played for Collingwood, then went to Adelaide. Stevie Wright, who played a lot of games for the Swans, and we played up in Sydney in that carnival, and that was really, I suppose, at that time, all the talent scouts from all the clubs were there watching that particular carnival, and I suppose Essendon became more interested or whatever after that carnival. I played centre half back, which was the first time in my whole junior days that I ever played in the back line, and I played centre half back, and we won. We beat South Australia in the final by 5 points, and it was a great carnival because the Victorians have always given away sort of 12 months or so in age to the other states to try and what they would say even up the competition, and so at 15 and 16 it can be an enormous difference in physical maturity between a 15-year-old or a 14-year-old and a 16-year-old, and that was a great win.
Essendon moved quickly, and it wasn't long before they were knocking on his Dimboola door with the most amazing offer to lure the 15-year-old to Melbourne.
Money just didn't enter into it, and it was, I think, they had to pay Dimboola a transfer fee, which was very heavy negotiation, and your local football side is hardly likely to make it so difficult that you're not going to be able to go and play in the VFL. And apart from that, at the time I'd received, I think it was when I played the Victorian side, I got an Adidas football bag, a pair of socks, and $20 to help with spending money up in Sydney. And which was it's a mountain of money I used to do. I used to do a paper round for $5 a week. I thought, $20 at one time is not too bad. And then the following year when when I went to Essendon, then I got like a $25 a week allowance money, which made me the richest kid at high school by a long way. And but money never entered into it. I didn't sort of even consider having a contract until I'd been there for a few years. But times were very different. My parents were very concerned about where I was going to live when I went to Melbourne, and I remember the night, still very vividly when the Essendon people turned up, and they'd come to Dimboola on this Wednesday, really to the season had already started. It was 1 week old, and they'd arrived at Dimboola to sort out the transfer from the Dimboola Football Club, and it was Kevin Egan, Barry Keane, who was a committeeman, and Ted Fordham, who was chairman of selectors. And they called in home, and I said, look, I'd love to go back to Melbourne. And so I basically went and got my bag packed, all my worldly possessions, which sort of filled half a suitcase. And my mum was very concerned that I didn't have any new school shoes, so I had to buy some new school shoes before I left. But she was very concerned about the fact that, where I was going to live, and she wanted me to be in a sort of a safe, secure family environment. And they assured my mother that that's the case. They had that all organised. And on this night, the Sullivans was very big in television. This is going back a long ways, but that was a big time show. And Tom was heading off to war, and I was heading off to Melbourne to play football. And my mum was crying, and I wasn't sure if she was crying because I was heading off to Melbourne to play football. Tom was heading off to the war, and she's still saying, look, are you sure you've got him a good family, that he's going to move into? And they said, yes, Mrs. Watson, everything's done, the deal's sweet, everything's under control, you don't need to worry. And so we hopped in the car, gone about 2 kilometres, and I said, where's the little bastard going to stay? And that was my introduction to football. And I ended up staying at Barry Keane's place for the first 3 months. He'd recently been divorced, and I guess he needed the company, and he had a big house in West Essendon, a big double-storey place. So I remember walking inside thinking, I've just made it, look at this. I mean, here I am in this beautiful big 2-storey house, and, there's going to be probably maids and servants and things like that. But they never appeared. In fact, he hardly ever appeared either. And I was left to sort of do my own washing and do my own cleaning and do my own cooking.
Did you ever find out from your mother if it was in fact Tom she was crying about, or was it her son leaving
No, she was in fact crying because Tom had left.
But while Tom was going off to war, Tim was preparing for his first battle.
I remember it was about dusk and someone from the Sun came to take my photo, and I put on an Essendon jumper that I found inside and did a bit of a jog up the hill.